After World War II, a new invisible conflict emerged, the Cold War. The United States and the Soviet Union became locked in a tense ideological standoff, fueling fear and suspicion across America. Propaganda and anti-communist hysteria swept the nation, making paranoia a part of daily life. Then, chilling rumors surfaced. Reports of American POWs brainwashed by enemy captors. The idea that minds could be hijacked ignited panic, raising fears of a weapon that could shatter personal autonomy. The government felt compelled to respond, desperate to understand and control this new threat. The CIA, America's covert spearhead, launched a secret mission to confront the specter of mind control. Driven by Cold War urgency, the agency began exploring the limits of human psychology, seeking ways to influence or even control behavior. Projects like Bluebird and Artichoke were born, shrouded in secrecy and free from oversight. The goal: develop tools to counter and potentially wield the power of mind manipulation. Ethics faded as the perceived threat grew. What started as defense soon became a chilling offensive quest, one that would spiral into a shadow war on the human mind. The Korean War intensified fears when American POWs returned with stories of brainwashing. The term exploded into public consciousness, conjuring images of erased identities and stolen wills. The US government, gripped by panic, tasked the CIA with uncovering the truth and developing countermeasures. The threat felt immediate and existential, justifying research that once seemed unthinkable. Ethical lines blurred as the nation raced to match and surpass its adversaries. The stage was set for secret programs that would push science and morality to their limits. The CIA's response began with Project Bluebird, focused on resisting and replicating enemy mind control. Early experiments explored hypnosis, drugs, and psychological conditioning. The project soon evolved into Artichoke, shifting from defense to offense, seeking ways to erase memories, extract secrets, and create programmable agents. Any method was considered if it promised control over the mind. These programs normalized ethically dubious research, laying the groundwork for something even darker. The path led directly to MKUltra. At the center of these efforts stood Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, a brilliant yet ruthless CIA chemist. Gottlieb believed the mind could be dismantled and rebuilt, and he was relentless in his pursuit of mind control. He experimented with poisons, psychoactive drugs, and psychological techniques, convinced these tools were vital for national security. Under his direction, the line between science and espionage blurred. The Cold War's paranoia justified ever more extreme measures. Gottlieb's early work paved the way for the most infamous mind control project of all. In 1953, the CIA launched MKUltra, a vast secret program to weaponize the human mind. Led by Gottlieb, MKUltra explored drugs like LSD, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, and more, often without subjects' consent. The program's ambition was chilling: to control behavior, erase memories, and create agents who could act against their will. Universities, hospitals, and prisons became unwitting laboratories. MKUltra operated in deep secrecy, with little oversight and no regard for ethics. The quest for mind control had become a dark reality, one that would haunt history for decades. With MKUltra underway, Dr. Sidney Gottlieb led secret experiments across America. The CIA targeted students, mental patients, and prisoners, often without their knowledge or consent. Hospitals, universities, and prisons became hidden laboratories for mind control research, shielded by national security. The program's vast scale and secrecy allowed abuses to flourish, far from public view. One of the most notorious and honestly horrifying chapters of MKUltra unfolded not on American soil, but across the border in Montreal, Canada. At the Allen Memorial Institute, a psychiatric facility affiliated with McGill University, Dr. Ewen Cameron reigned. Cameron was a respected psychiatrist, even serving as president of the American Psychiatric Association, and later the World Psychiatric Association. Yet, under the auspices of MKUltra's Sub-Project 68, he conducted a series of brutal experiments designed to erase existing memories and personalities, and then attempt to reprogram the individuals. His work was funded in part by the CIA through a front organization. Cameron's theory, which he termed psychic driving, proposed that he could break down a patient's mind to a blank slate and then rebuild it. To achieve this, he subjected patients, many of whom had entered the institute for relatively minor issues like anxiety or postpartum depression, to a terrifying regimen. Patients were put into drug-induced comas for weeks or even months at a time. They were simultaneously subjected to massive doses of electroconvulsive therapy, sometimes at 30 to 40 times the medically recommended intensity. This combination was intended to obliterate their existing mental patterns, effectively wiping their minds clean of past experiences and thoughts. During these periods of induced coma and repeated electroshocks, Cameron's patients were also subjected to psychic driving itself. This involved playing looped audio messages, sometimes negative and sometimes supposedly positive, for 16 to 20 hours a day through headphones or speakers placed under their pillows. These messages were intended to implant new thoughts or behaviors. Some tapes repeated simple phrases endlessly, while others contained more complex statements. The patients, in their vulnerable, drugged, and disoriented states, were defenseless against this relentless auditory bombardment, a constant stream of words designed to reshape their very consciousness. The consequences of Dr. Cameron's experiments were devastating and, for many, permanent. Far from being cured, his patients often emerged with severe memory loss, unable to recall their families, their pasts, or even basic life skills. Some regressed to childlike states, losing bladder and bowel control or forgetting how to speak. Many suffered lifelong psychological trauma from the ordeal. The CIA, which had provided significant funding for Cameron's research in the hope of discovering brainwashing techniques, eventually deemed his methods too unreliable and brutal for their purposes. But the damage to his unwitting victims was already done, a stark testament to science twisted into a tool of torment. Back in the United States, the CIA's experimentation with LSD took on a particularly sordid form under a sub-project known as Operation Midnight Climax. This operation, run by George Hunter White, an agent from the Federal Bureau of Narcotics who was seconded to the CIA, involved setting up agency-funded safe houses in places like San Francisco and New York. The primary purpose of these establishments was to study the effects of LSD on unsuspecting individuals in a more realistic, uncontrolled setting. These were not sterile laboratories. They were designed to mimic ordinary apartments, complete with hidden observation equipment and a sinister agenda. The methodology of Operation Midnight Climax was devious and deeply unethical. Prostitutes were hired by the CIA and paid to lure men back to these safe houses. Once there, the unsuspecting Johns would be surreptitiously dosed with LSD, often slipped into their drinks. Behind one-way mirrors, CIA agents, including White himself, would sit with notepads and sometimes martinis, observing and recording the men's reactions as the powerful hallucinogen took hold. They watched as individuals experienced confusion, terror, paranoia, and profound alterations in perception, all without any understanding of what was happening to them or why. The agents' observations were clinical and detached, focusing on behavioral changes and vulnerabilities that LSD might expose. There was little to no concern for the well-being of the men being drugged. These individuals were simply human test subjects in a clandestine experiment, their experiences treated as data points. No follow-up care was provided, and the potential for long-term psychological damage or dangerous behavior while under the influence was largely ignored. The operation was a stark example of the CIA's willingness to exploit and endanger ordinary citizens in its pursuit of mind control capabilities, all under the cloak of national security. Operation Midnight Climax was perhaps the most infamous instance of the CIA's non-consensual LSD dosing, but it was far from the only one. LSD and other potent psychoactive drugs were tested on a wide array of people, sometimes in bars, restaurants, or other public places, with agents observing from a distance. While some subjects in other MKUltra sub-projects were volunteers, though the true nature and risks of the experiments were often concealed, many others, like the victims of Midnight Climax, had no idea they were part of a government experiment. This reckless endangerment of the public highlighted the sinister turn science had taken within the secretive confines of MKUltra. Frank Olson, a U.S. Army biochemist, was an insider at Fort Detrick, privy to the nation's darkest secrets. In 1953, at a CIA retreat, he was secretly dosed with LSD by his colleagues, without his knowledge or consent. The effects were devastating. Olsen spiraled into paranoia and distress, questioning his work and wanting to resign. Just days later, Olsen fell to his death from a New York hotel window. The official story: suicide. The truth remains shrouded in secrecy. For decades, Frank Olsen's family grieved, haunted by unanswered questions and official secrecy. In 1975, a government report revealed an Army scientist's death after being dosed with LSD by the CIA, details matching Olsen's case. The family received a formal apology, but closure remained elusive. A 1994 autopsy suggested Olsen was murdered, not suicidal, deepening the mystery and suspicions of a cover-up. For decades, MKUltra operated in the shadows, its secrets hidden from the world. In 1974, journalist Seymour Hersh exposed illegal CIA activities, cracking open the agency's secrecy. Congress responded with the Church Committee, launching historic investigations. Their findings finally brought MKUltra's disturbing truth into the public eye. The public unveiling of MKUltra's activities by the Church Committee in 1975, alongside similar findings from the Rockefeller Commission, provoked widespread horror and disbelief. The detailed accounts of experiments conducted on unsuspecting American and Canadian citizens, often with devastating consequences, painted a picture of a government agency operating far outside the bounds of law and ethics. The revelation that the CIA had actively sought to manipulate and control human minds using methods that amounted to psychological torture shattered the public's trust. This profound sense of betrayal resonated deeply, leaving a lasting scar on the nation's faith in its own government, a wound that has yet to fully heal. In the immediate aftermath of these exposures, there were some attempts to address the egregious wrongs committed under MKUltra. President Gerald Ford publicly apologized to the family of Frank Olsen and authorized a financial settlement. A few victims, primarily those involved in Dr. Cameron's experiments at McGill, successfully sued the United States government and received compensation. However, these gestures were seen by many as insufficient. No CIA officials faced criminal prosecution for their roles in designing or executing the MKUltra program. The agency largely investigated itself, and true accountability for the architects and perpetrators of these abuses remained conspicuously absent, fostering a sense of unresolved injustice. A major impediment to achieving a full understanding of MKUltra, and therefore full accountability, was the deliberate destruction of crucial records. In 1973, as internal concerns and the possibility of external investigations loomed, then CIA Director Richard Helms ordered that all files pertaining to MKUltra be destroyed. Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, the program's chief architect, personally carried out this directive. This act of systematic erasure was a clear attempt to bury the program's most damning secrets and protect those involved from future scrutiny. It ensured that the complete story of MKUltra, its full scope and all its victims, would likely never be known. Despite Helms and Gottlieb's efforts to purge the record, some documents miraculously survived. Approximately 20,000 pages of MKUltra financial records were inadvertently misfiled and were later discovered in 1977, following Freedom of Information Act requests. These surviving files, though representing only a fraction of the original documentation, provided chilling glimpses into the vast network of sub-projects and the cavalier attitude towards human experimentation. The legacy of MKUltra is therefore one of profound ethical breaches, lives ruined, trust irrevocably broken, and the disturbing realization that a democratic government was capable of sanctioning such a dark and terrifying chapter in secret. MKUltra officially ended, but its chilling story never faded. It burrowed deep into the American psyche, a persistent, unsettling echo. Behind sensationalized movies and TV, a stark reality remains. The US government conducted horrifying experiments on its own citizens. The true extent may never be known. The shadow of MKUltra lingers, a reminder that nightmares can be real and secrets still hide in the dark.